Alright, here we are, the playoff stage of the last ever Blastfall Finals. Today we set off on the quarterfinal journey with G2 taking on Team Spirit and Faze Clan taking on Team Liquid. And both of these series had a lot of interesting storylines going into it, and both games had potential to be incredible series all the way through. However, it would seem somebody swapped out the scripts for today because for whatever reason, G2 and Faze were determined to speedrun a semifinal appearance. Both these series were decisive 2-0 victories, where G2 popped off and shut down Team Spirit, and Faze put Team Liquid in a torture chamber, absolutely destroying them on both maps. Both series had a lot of potential to be some of the best games played at this tournament, and instead I'm walking away with the vibe that both of these wins felt like statement games for G2 and Faze respectively. So let's go ahead and break down what happened and prep for our semifinal matchups tomorrow. But, as usual, before we get there, make sure you guys take a second, leave a like, leave a comment down below, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It helps out immensely in the YouTube algorithm, so thank you for doing it. And without any further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So an interesting place to start when talking about G2 taking on Spirit is that this matchup has been notoriously bad for Team Spirit since the player break. They've matched up 3 times now. Bless you. Are you good, dog? You gonna sneeze again? Or can I finish working? You know, this is how I put food in that bowl, alright? Let's show a little more professionalism on set, please. Okay. Anyways, going back to the most legit tournament in Counter-Strike history, the Esports World Cup, G2 have been winning these series against Spirit very soundly, and today felt no different. We opened up on Dust 2 with a 13-9 victory, where G2 held Spirit to a 6-6 opening T-side half, but when we swapped sides, the CT defense from Spirit was lacking, and with the puggy nature of Dust 2 in general, G2 as individuals were popping off, and they just ran them over the second half, only conceding 3 rounds along the way. The other really interesting part about this matchup is that NiKo has been very efficient in handling Donk in the one-on-one. For this series, Donk outkilled every member of G2 or was close against m0NESY, but against NiKo, NiKo was clearly better, killing Donk 13 times compared to Donk's only 4. Which definitely led to a lot of problems for Spirit, because as we established over time, when Spirit can't make Donk work and Donk isn't taking space and getting kills, Spirit lose just too much firepower. I don't really think NiKo is going out of his way to do anything that other players aren't doing against Donk. I think just what it boils down to is that NiKo at the end of the day is arguably the best rifler to ever play CS, certainly CSGO, and he is a master at putting himself in the correct position to handle pretty much any situation, whether that's timely aggression on the CT side or always finding a way to play like the correct off angles to catch people off guard. Not to get too far ahead of myself, but here's a good example. On Mirage, Spirit are trying to push into the split A, Donk is leading the charge through connector, and NiKo's playing a nice shallow off angle towards jungle. He's not in one of the typical corners you would stand in because he knows A main's being covered by his teammates, but Donk has to clear too many angles, he swings looking the wrong way, and NiKo takes him out before Donk can swing on him. That kind of positioning makes a big difference when you're playing such an aggressive player like Donk. It'll be cool to see how this matchup develops over time, because obviously Donk is someone who with his talent is going to contend to be one of the best players CS2 has ever seen, one of the best talents CS maybe ever sees. So to see how he evolves against NiKo, one of the best to ever do it, will be really interesting to watch play out, that passing of the torch if you will. But today, firmly, the torch remains in NiKo's hands. Him and m0NESY were electric throughout this series, and they just overpowered Spirit, especially down the stretch on Dust 2 like we already established. Though certainly that dominance was primarily in the second half. To start off this game, it could not have been more back and forth, and I think it boils down to this weird place that the Dust 2 meta has settled in at the pro level, where a lot of these rounds are boiling down into all 5 Ts taking long control, all the CTs backing up to Cat and CT, and then this huge fight to take the A side that decides these rounds. And when everyone is scrapping for control in this tiny section of the map, it's just going to create volatility. Sometimes the rounds would go G2's way when they blow up long early. Other rounds, like on round 10, it would go Spirit's way after they work the picks and get their control. Still comes down to a close situation at the end, like with Snacks hitting the weird jump shot on Chopper and then forcing Shiro to push him with time running out, but as the game continued to develop, the fragging for G2 just seemed superior. Like here where G2 bite the bait on the mid to B from Zontix as he gets the pick on m0NESY with his back turned. So they rotate off A, but Spirit are going back through long to swing it around back into A, so Mouths and NiKo are hauling ass back to hold it off. They double swing into long A, Mouths goes down, but then NiKo hits this insane triple with the FAMAS. Just these individual moments that G2 rely on to win their rounds. and they just sort of ran away with the momentum from there, culminating in the final round where Bubblesj pulls off this insane ace to win the game. G2 were on low buy. If they lose here, they're forced into a save. Suddenly that scoreline is going to get uncomfortably close. We might be looking at overtime, but the lobotomist is in and he's ready to click some heads. He goes out long with this insane spray transfer to get the opening. He waits for his teammates to collect on long A, then he takes the swing, catching Donk taking an overpeak on long, and now the push is on. Shiro's going to get the trade over his shoulders, but then Bubblesj is going to jump up and quickly execute him as well, getting the side control, and then it comes down to Chomper in the 1v3, and obviously Chomper, Bubblesj, pretty different players skill-wise. Bubblesj is able to take that final kill and the match victory for G2. Now, moving on to Mirage, I had a lot of stuff on my bingo card for this series. However, the one thing that wasn't there was the person to be having a shootout with m0NESY at the top of the scoreboard being Zontix. He more or less went blow for blow with m0NESY. He ended the game with 27 kills and a 1.49 rating, and he was the thing keeping this team together. He was electric on the CT side, and on the T side, while Donk and Shiro had their own struggles, Zontix maintained his performance. Which just on its surface was nice to see, because we all know that Zontix has been having his struggles both in and out the server. He feels more and more like the odd man out on this roster, and that sucks because I think his merits as a player are pretty clear. He's an excellent CT side performer, and that has pretty much never slipped throughout his time in Spirit, but on the T side he's been notorious for his issues. Compounding that with the fact that he's the lone Ukrainian in an all-Russian organization, there are a lot of social pressures that I'm sure Zontix has to keep in mind every time he enters the server, and that must weigh down on him heavily because the situation is definitely less than ideal. I'm not qualified to speak on those things, so I won't go any further. All of that is to say that I think people should be a little more sympathetic to what the guy might be going through. But at least here, as his team struggled, Zontix was the one who kept the minute. Like I said, his CT side play was immaculate. His ability to respond when G2 would strike out and just take a ton of picks out of nowhere and continue to win rounds back was awesome. Like here on round 11, where things are going to start off with G2 on a classic pistols, but we put a one gun on our best player kind of buy, and they're going to cause mayhem in mid early, taking Donk and Shiro at the cost of snacks. They're going to rotate around and go for the late B hit, and while Magix in his own right does a great job of taking down two of his own before he concedes the side control, it's Zontix in a 2v1 up against Nico and m0NESY, who shines excellently to win the clutch and keep Spirit ahead. In fact, throughout the majority of this game, Spirit seemed to be in control. They were winning the majority of these rounds. G2 were taking a lot of good shots, getting a lot of good picks, but they weren't able to finish rounds off very often. It got to the point where it was almost looking like a guaranteed third map in this series. Spirit were up to a 5-11 lead on the second half, and then everything started going wrong. Or rather, m0NESY just decided that the game needed to end quick, because G2 locked it in on their CT side from this point on. Round 17, they're on a low buy. They just annihilated Spirit. m0NESY, Bubblesj, clicking heads, Snacks getting a shotgun kill. Good job, Snacks. The next round, Spirit, they're on their last buy. Gotta try and make something happen before they have to drop back and save. m0NESY apparently doesn't need the op to dominate mid. Sick double spray down to take Shiro and Chopper off the server. And this was that round I talked about earlier where Nico played that really smart off angle to take care of Donk. G2 take care of this round handily. And from there, Spirit were just unable to convert any full buy opportunity. The only round they won before we go to overtime was, of course, the desperate force buy on round 22, because that's just how the game works sometimes. And even then, this round was really close to being G2's to take. It's an all-out B-rush. Hunter dismantles Chomper and Donk early, but Zontix slows down the apartments, takes care of Hunter. Shiro works his way around the flank very nicely. And full credit to Magix for being able to navigate this 2v2 with Zontix, who's low health, winning his gunfights to give Spirit that match point, but it just didn't matter. G2 very calmly forced overtime thereafter, and they were just dominant throughout the rest of this match. There's no way to get around it. Another Spirit tournament run cut short. G2 are moving on to the semifinals. And yeah, I'm definitely a little bit concerned about Spirit heading into this major cycle, because we're very much entering the same territory that Simple found himself in, ZywOo found himself in at various points, where if Donk isn't literally the best player to ever touch Counter-Strike, then Spirit really need a lot of help to get these wins over, which sucks. So I hope you guys enjoyed the first part of this video where there was a significant amount of stuff to get into and talk about, because there's absolutely fuck all to talk about with this FaZe Clan versus Team Liquid series. FaZe handed these boys a good old-fashioned ass whipping of the highest order. I mean, Jesus H. Christ, Kerrigan and those boys were beating them cheeks in so goddamn bad, I was worried I was on the wrong website for a minute. I mean, outside of Twist generally being pretty good and JKS having one cool ace on Inferno, Liquid just did not have a chance in this series. You could even say they didn't have a horse in this race. Get it? Because Team Liquid's logo is a horse. Anyway, on Inferno, it wasn't all doom and gloom to start. This game was very back and forth, literally trading rounds back and forth to start the game, and it looked like Liquid were going to pull ahead with the early lead, except on round 5, they committed an unforgivable sin by losing to basically a full saving FaZe Clan, even though Twist had this great 3-man mode down in mid, but Robs and Frozen, they navigated the situation well, got the bomb down. Robs was electric here and across this entire series, Frozen closes out the round, and FaZe slip into gear and don't look back. In this series, especially on Mirage, as we'll get into in just a minute, this was the old FaZe Clan. The FaZe Clan we knew before the player break, where they would take leads and just run you into the ground, grind you into dust. They gave Liquid no quarter for pretty much the rest of the game. Like I said, the only other bright spot for Liquid really was a JKS ace on round 10, which, you know, good job, sexiest man alive, love you JK Sex. But again, even when they're at their lowest, which I think FaZe Clan have been as of recently, they still have that quality where once they have the lead, they're not going to let go easily. So FaZe wrap things up pretty quick, 13-6, take the 1-0 lead, and we're going to Mirage, where of course FaZe famously handed Liquid one of the classic choke losses of all time not that long ago with the reverse sweep. FaZe decided they're going to write the script a little differently this time and just absolutely kick Liquid in the teeth. 13-3. This game was over so fast, like before you could blink. And my thorough, expert, detailed analysis on a macro nuclear level of the nuance of Counter-Strike on a fundamental human basis are that Robs, he was pretty good. Kinda just unstoppable. And Liquid could not do anything in the face of the firepower from FaZe this time around. Like I said, even Kerrigan was getting his licks in. Kerrigan above a 1.0 rating, 1.2 on this map. You don't get to say that very often nowadays. Now, jokes aside, this is another stumbling point for Liquid with this new lineup, and I do think they're in flux and growing as we see them develop. One thing we have to point out is that this was by far one of Ultimate's worst series since being picked up. And honestly, that's going to happen. He is a rookie Opper playing in Tier 1 for the first time. He's a young kid, and most of all, he plays a boomer bust style. He is the most aggressive Opper in Tier 1. He takes more opening attempts than anybody else in the world, and sometimes when you play that aggressive, you're gonna get burnt. It's happened to everybody. It doesn't matter if you're simple or me, and I'll leave it in the comments to debate who's better historically. I'm gonna go with me personally. Some days you're gonna take that swing and you're gonna hit every shot. Some days you're gonna take that swing and get decked. And this was just one of those series where Ultimate got rocked, he got checked, and he got found out. The one thing I really don't want Ultimate to do as he begins to grow as a player is try and compromise on his playstyle. He plays a playstyle that I think is very worthwhile. CS2 is a more aggressive game, and I want Ultimate to stay aggressive, stay hungry, and keep taking all of these op attempts, because I think when he hits, he is so dynamic and has already shown a peak to be one of the top 5 best oppers in the world. I want him to refine that style, grow, develop the game sense, develop the system in Liquid around him, and optimize it. I do not want him to slow down whatsoever. Anyways, GG, go next. We give Na'Vi and FaZe in the semifinals. That's going to be a banger. G2 Vitality on the other side, also going to be a banger. It's safe to say tomorrow, we got some serious Counter-Strike on deck. And so if you like, comment, and subscribe to the channel, you can be here soon after the action ends to get your same-day recap of all the biggest tournaments in Counter-Strike. My name is LionHeartZ. Thank you guys for watching. These videos are powered by Advanced.gg. Check the description, go to their website, browse any of their excellent products, and if you decide to make a purchase, you can use my code LIONS10 at checkout for 10% off. Thank you to Advanced.gg. I also work with Refrag. They are the best CS2 improvement service out there, in my opinion. If you decide to pick up a Refrag subscription, you can use my code LION15 for 50% off. Thank you to Refrag. As usual, shout out to my channel members, Justin, Jesse, Furley, Bubblesj, Dr. Cocktor, Milan Berta. If you want to become a channel member, you can do so at the link in the description. Follow me on twitch.tv/LionHeartZ2 as well, and I'll see you guys soon with another video. Peace!